Hello, Internet. And today we're doing another Wii game review. It's third in a series where I grab a game at random from my collection and play it. So this time we're doing the Conduit 2. This is a sequel to, the Conduit. This came out in 2011, put up by High Voltage and Sega. Um, so it's a first-person shooter game. So a little bit about the story here, um, and I like it because I like the conspiracy things and anything to do with aliens. So the story is if I say this wrong, I apologize. Anunnaki, 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 reptilian shape-shifting aliens who are secretly controlling the government, our governments, and society. And of course, it's your job, only you, just you, nobody else, just the one guy, um, to save humanity from it. So that's the story. So it's a pretty simple one in the respect that you can sum it up um, in such a way. Uh, Menu options. So you get a few different options in the menu. You get a story mode here where you get to save the human race on your own. Then you get a split screen, couch-based multiplayer. So you can play with your friends all on one system, up to 4 players. And you have 2 modes here. Invasion is one of them, where you just defeat waves of enemies over and over. And then the other is competitive, where you can set rules and the type of gameplay, duration, deathmatch, that kind of thing. And then there's also online play, which of course no longer works. But this is cool. In online gameplay, you can play up to 12 players in a single game, which on the Wii, that's impressive. And of course, you can use friend codes, find your friends and all that. But you can play online with this game with no friend codes, multiplayer, um, which is a huge win on the Wii, even in the Wii U, really. Um, but of course, none of that works anymore. There's also in the menu, there's a store where you can buy. And this store isn't like real money; it's just credits. So as you play through the game, we can buy weapons, armor, different characters. The weapons and upgrades, you can use those in the campaign and multiplayer. The armor characters are just for multiplayer only. Then, so I feel like I'm saying that, going through this real fast. Controller options. So you get a few controller options. You get the Wiimote and the nunchuck, of course. Then Wiimote Plus and a nunchuck. And then you can use the classic or a pro controller. Unfortunately, you cannot use a GameCube controller on this one, so sad face time for that. But that being said, are the controls good? Well, they're good for any of the options there. Really, the only thing that stuck out as annoying for me was if you use the Wiimote combo by default. The melee attack is a thrust motion with the Wiimote. Um, you can adjust it so you don't have to do that, and I'd recommend doing so because when you go to thrust, your guy just the screen spins all over the place like a crazy person. There's no reason for that. Um, so you just make that one adjustment, and the motion controls are fine. The classic controller works pretty good. I used the Pro controller. I didn't bother trying the classic on this one. The only thing with the classic controls I didn't like is by default your thumb lands on that directional pad, of course, not on the analog sticks. They should have made that with the analog sticks up high, but whatever. Which is why I wish the GameCube controller would have worked, but that's not what we got. So that's the only gripe on the classic and the Pro controllers. Other than that, they work fine. No issues there at all. Now, if you can use the motion controls, some people just despise them. They're way better than using the classic controllers. I mean, using analog sticks is fine, but when you can use the motion controls of the Wiimote for aiming, it's much superior. Um, Yeah, and say what you will. Some people don't like motion controls, but it's as close to a mouse as you're going to get on a console. Um, and I used to be a PC gamer. I am a little bit still, and keyboard and mouse, you can't beat the control. Um, so being able to use motion controls in a similar fashion is fantastic. Now, here's something that's cool. If you have Motion Plus, you have to, I mean, if you have it, you have to enable it in the menu, which is kind of weird. But once you turn it on, it's amazing. The control with the Wii Motion Plus is out of control. This is probably one of the best examples for Motion Plus that I've ever seen. Um, just fantastic. It's just super responsive. There's no floating around or anything. It's just moves when you move. It's super fast, super responsive. You can shake it all over the screen and it just follows you. It's just use it if you have it. That's the way to go. So controls, they're great. No problems there. Use Wii Plus if you have it. Or Motion Plus. And then as far as the graphics are concerned, High Voltage had their own graphics engine they designed for the Wii when the first Conduit came out. And they used I don't know if it was a slightly different one or not, but it's still, they used their own graphics engine for this one as well. And it's amazing. It does everything you expect from one of the higher end consoles of the time, the bump mapping, the particle effects, all that stuff. And they're really nice. Um, Despite the lack of resolution and power of the Wii. um, and as far as the frames per second, things like that, despite it being higher quality images, the gameplay never drops the frame rate that I noticed anyway. Everything looks sharp. It's easy to tell what everything is. It's definitely one of the better looking games, if not one of the best looking games on the system. Um, that being said, there's some games that try to give too much detail on the Wii, and it just becomes kind of muddled. So they kind of, they stop before getting too detailed and just making it kind of muddy looking, which is, fantastic for them, or by them, I guess. I don't know. And then the audio, um, nothing really stood out on the audio for me. There's some music helps set the mood, but honestly, never stood out on its own, which is good since I guess it doesn't take away from the gameplay at all. But it's probably not a score that you're going to add to a playlist and jump on a treadmill to, or you clean the house to. I don't know. So yeah, the audio and the sound effects are all decent. Nothing was bad. Just the score didn't stand out as all to me. Um, as far as the gameplay, and I feel like I'm rushing through this, and I apologize. Maybe too much caffeine. I don't know, something. So if you've ever played a first-person shooter before, it's gonna feel pretty familiar. Um, as far as how the gameplay works, the enemies aren't terribly smart on their default settings, but you can fix that if you want to. You can change the difficulty levels, of course. I think there's 4 or 5 levels, or at least 2 or 3 above where it starts off, and then 1 below it if you need that. Um, so on the default setting, again, it's not difficult because the enemies, yeah, once you come around a corner or something and they see you, sometimes they'll take a second or two to respond. Um, or if they're around a corner and they are alerted to your presence, they don't always come looking for you. Sometimes they just kind of stay there and wait. And if they're grouped together, you just shake the nunchuck and throw a grenade over at them, and it usually takes care of them pretty good. And really easy to get headshots in this, especially if you're using the Motion Plus. So, and the headshots seem to take them out much faster than the regular shots. So again, pretty standard for a first-person shooter. Nothing real different for the gameplay. The controls, as I mentioned, are good, and as you progress through the game, you'll uncover a pretty good storyline. So don't avoid the cutscenes. Maybe it's just I'm more partial to it because I like conspiracies, but definitely, the story helps drive it. The maps, the levels are good. Lots of places to use for cover, corners to snipe around. So you never really know what's around the corner. There's no HUD that tells you where the enemies are or anything, so that's nice. Um, and of course, there's upgrades for weapons and character and your character as you play through the levels. Um, but there's one thing that stands out in this game, and they had it in the first one too. There's this orb. It's called the All-Seeing Eye, the ASE, and it's kind of like your companion. It talks to you a little bit. It's sort of like a robot. I'm not sure if it's a robot or an alien. I don't know. Anyway, you pull it out and you scan things with it, kind of like Super Metroid, where you scan stuff, and that helps progress the storyline. It also helps you give direction of where you need to go next, and it helps drive the story in game without a cutscene by giving you some narrative, which is nice. That's kind of anything. That's really the standout in this game, what it offers versus other first-person shooters. Um, Now, it's not the best game in the genre. I'm sure some people would say Halo is a better game, or Quake or Doom is a better game. Um, but being that there's not a whole heck of a lot of great first-person shooters on the Wii, and the ones that are on the Wii most are bad ports from other consoles. So definitely, if you want a first-person shooter and you play the Wii, this is, and of course the original too. Get the first and the second; both are great. Um, Good games. So yeah, it's definitely good. And right now, the complete in box price is only $14. So $14, you get a great game, um, and you can play it multiplayer. So if you have friends over, you don't have to play just party games or whatever. You can play a first-person shooter. Kind of like back in the N64, GoldenEye, that sort of setup. We'll see. It's definitely worth it for $14. Now, there was also a second, a limited edition through GameStop. At the time when it came out, it was the same price point, but now it's just a few bucks more. So $17 for the limited edition. What you get with that, though, is you get a gold-colored suit. So if you're playing just for the campaign, you're not going to notice a gold-colored suit. It's first-person shooter. You do get a different all-seeing eye that has a better search, I guess. I don't really understand what the difference is, but it comes with that. And if you're lucky enough, the limited edition also came with a 44-page color art book. So for $3 more, for $17, that's kind of the going price right now on the limited edition. Definitely worth it, I would say, for the art book. If you can't get one with the art book, I would say just go back, save yourself the $3. Unless the collector's just gonna have one of everything, then get them both. So, yeah, definitely worth it. Go get it. And I actually got my copy for much less than the going price. Um, I find that GameStop actually has fantastic prices on used Wii games, usually um, below, sometimes less than half of regular market value. So, say what you will about GameStop, their Wii games are cheap as hell for the most part, except for the first-party games. Jeez. Anyway, um, so yeah, there's my review. Go get it. $14. I'm sorry that this took me a little bit longer to get out. I've been playing Breath of the Wild, and that's been sucking up all my free gaming time. So um, I was going to make this a little more detailed, but I just need to get it done and out so I can go back and play more Zelda. So happy interneting and have a great day. Thanks for watching or listening.